Hey everybody, manifesting with the Mergoddess Tuesday. Hello, Sarah. Ooh,
Ooh.
you gotta show us your shirt.
Yes, mermaid at heart.
Can't see the heart.
Oh, well, it's this big checkered thing that's in a heart shape.
All right.
It's my
So,
first time wearing it, so I'm gracing everyone with this beautiful shirt today.
all right. This is the first time I've worn this shirt since it was washed.
Nice. That
Uh,
counts. Okay.
so I have some questions for you today. So people are gonna are going into the new year, and you have the new year, new you, new decade, new you. Kind of it's a good opportunity for people to shake things up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to ask you about is, so you talk a lot about sort of surrender and joy and serendipity and things coming to you. And
Mm-hmm.
so my question is, like when I'm in a hard place and I haven't been eating right or exercising or thinking particularly positively, there's a way in which um, moving in the direction of better health feels even less joyful, right?
Mm-hmm.
It involves, first of all, um, acknowledging, right? Because if I've been, like I went to play frisbee today, there's a whole bunch of us, and everyone was complaining like, oh, it's been 10 days, all I've done is eaten, like they're feeling like heavy. And all during that time, I'm sure they were like, oh, this is great, eating, family, resting, relaxing, seeing movies. But now they're like, oh, I don't feel so good. How do you help people navigate when moving towards real joy actually feels crappy?
Well, so I can relate to this is kind of happening to me now, right? Because so I got on the team, that part is like really exciting, but then there's still like training that has to be going on so that I can do even better, right? And so just like people like they eat at this family thing and it was this really exciting thing, but now their goals are thrown off. And so, there's still this like path that they're wanting to go, on. And so, what I personally have been doing is that when like there is a negative thought that creeps in my mind, I try and place it with a positive one. So, say like for instance today, like it's been like almost a week, like tomorrow's my rest day. Like I'm having to push harder like today, like I'm literally like I don't want to go and do any more workouts, right? But like then I'm immediately like feeling like okay, so why don't I want to like do this, like somebody that's eating or they ate that food but then they're having this like complicated thing happening in their head, and it's like, well, why don't you ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? So, I went and I asked myself, like, why is it that I don't want to go? And then it's like, oh, it's New Year's Eve, people are inviting me to go out and stuff. And like, here I am going to be swimming in chlorine tonight, like for the second time. And then it's like, but, like at the same time, like I have never been at this level of my desire, of my goal. And so, I'm like constantly feeding myself with like, okay, like, oh, how exciting. And just like starting to like visualize what it is that I want during the process. So, like today, like I swam in the morning, my body is hurting, but at the same time, I'm imagining tomorrow's rest day. Like, ooh, what's tomorrow going to be like? I'm going to do nothing. I'm not going to set an alarm. I'm going to like sit around and just like not move my body, like that's exciting for me. So like going back to someone that, is in a place where they just ate really bad, or even they're thinking of going to a party tonight and they're going to drink, but they already know how they're going to feel. So it's like, the thing is, it's like, what is important to you? Are your goals important to you, or is important to satisfy someone else's needs that aren't your own? You know what I mean?
Mm. Well, it feels like, okay, so my goals are important to me, but like, so if I'm following, sort of, spiritual teachings about moving towards joy, it almost feels like my goals are moving me away from joy. You know, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a hump you got to get over, isn't there?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, and I mean, it's a constant battle that your mind is saying, like, oh, you could just like sit at home and like hang out, but then like there's this other like momentum that's telling you, like, hey, like this is the thing that you want to do that's gonna get you closer to there. And what I'm experiencing, as the more that I can like appreciate the struggle, that I can appreciate like these times when I'm not, really that motivated to do it, but I still want to do it. The next moment is like this magical moment that happens. Like, I mean, it's like over and over. The more that I practice just surrendering to, this is what it is right now, I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to be okay with it. And I know that there's something, another thought, another feeling that's going to lead me to where I want to go.
So that's very helpful, because you're not talking about sort of chasing positivity and eliminating negativity, right?
No.
Right. You're talking about, you said, appreciating the struggle. So
Exactly.
how would you help someone do that? So I'm coach. I was coaching someone this week who's like, I don't understand what happened, but I'm totally unmotivated. I have no desire to eat right, to exercise. Like, I was excited a while ago, but now I'm just not, and I'm really confused about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, sounds like you don't want to do it. Just fine. Like, which,
Yeah.
but then but it's almost like, not caring is the ultimate form of caring.
Exactly. Because deep down, you really do care. And so that's creating the resistance in your body. Oh, I don't care. I care. But your like the goals and things that you want, like they're not going to come to you because you're giving out mixed signals. It's like having one person having a Waze on the phone and another person having Google, and they're saying totally different things, but they're eventually going to get you there, right? But like there's still like all this like chaos kind of going in, like Google Maps telling you turn left and Waze is like, no, go this way.
Yeah, we do that sometimes. Like,
We
we
do.
don't entirely trust my wife's iPhone 6, so we put, we have hers on because it's got the, it's connected to the car charger, and mine might die, but it's, well, I'll do Waze and she'll do Apple Maps, and
Exactly. And then you get to the same place, right? But like one may have a different route than the other one. The same goes for somebody saying, oh, like I don't really care, but in their mind they care. So their mind is like the Waze, and like them telling you that they don't care is like the Apple Maps. And so
hmm,
they're just conflicting with the real issue. And the real issue is that they aren't owning up to, you know what? I'm not okay with this. Okay, so I'm not okay with this. So how can I be okay with it? Well, the first step to be okay with it is to be okay with it right where you are. Like, just literally sit there and be like, okay, I decided to eat a whole cake. And, and maybe that wasn't the best decision that I could do, but I did it. And so by accepting that, you're like knowing that that happened, and you can now move towards where you want to go, versus like not dealing with that feeling of, shame and guilt and, and all those feelings are energy. And so like if you always are pressing this stuff down, it never gets to the surface. And then you're never getting to the issue that is you want to overcome it,
Hmm. Yeah. So the move is to make yourself okay with what is.
Not necessarily make yourself, but just be okay that like you're by like by your heart beating, by you being able to hear this, by you even waking up in the morning, you are enough. And by understanding that you are enough by being here of who you are right now, that is going to get you to your next piece of whatever it is. Because like as a society, like we're never good enough for each other. There's always somebody that we want to be, or there's always something that we want to do. And so we're never okay. And so like we never clear this energy of guilt and shame because we're constantly chasing something that's outside of us. But if we understand that like we are in our own way, like the person that isn't okay with where they are, but they're saying they're okay with where they are the ones stopping them from getting to where they want to go. We're always in our own way. And so the more that for myself, the more that I understand that, like my goals haven't gotten to me when I wanted them to because I was in my own way. But now that I'm accepting where I am, understanding that it's okay to be frustrated, it's okay to not want to do something. But by understanding that and just like being with that, just like feeling how that feels, like, oh, I'm uncomfortable right now. Like, ooh, like, okay, let me just like sit and see what this feels like and then see what happens in the next now.
So it's even okay to be jealous.
Yeah, totally
Right.
okay to feel jealous.
Right. Because I think, I think our society feeds it, but I think a lot of us, most of us, maybe all of us have gotten some sort of "you're not enough, you're not okay" programming. And
Yeah.
and so I had a healing session last night with a shamanic plant spirit medicine practitioner who I'm going to be interviewing on the podcast in a week or two. And one of the messages that I got from the session was that my worth, my value is not based on my bank account or my success or my Facebook followers on Plant Yourself. It's entirely based on how I show up in the world in each moment, as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a business person. It's entirely experiential as opposed to somehow measurable and quantifiable. And so and that was in the context of I'm not really setting the world on fire with my business, and I'm frustrated, right? So it's like let go of that goal as a driver of your worth, and then you can move towards it. So I think for a lot of people who come into, oh, I'm overweight, or I'm out of shape, or I'm so ashamed at what I ate yesterday, or I'm such a couch potato, that those judgments are the things that are holding them back. And there's a way to accept, you're saying, I think, that there's a way to accept all those things without capitulating to them, without letting them, without letting them become the future.
Yeah, and also like you don't have to like be all positive about it. It's okay to like feel the feelings, feel the shame, feel the guilt, feel like all of it, and like understand that it's a feeling. It's not an identity. Like we get confused with how we feel and then we identify ourselves as like, oh my God, I feel like a couch potato. And so then I am the couch potato. And then I become the couch potato in many other realities, but it doesn't have like you could be a couch potato now, but in like another moment you could get up and walk, and then you're not a couch potato, you know?
Right. Yeah. In the session, she's, she says, "Oh my goodness, Eeyore is sitting on your chest." Yeah, get up, Eeyore. We need Tigger there.
Pounce you out.
Yeah. Yeah. So it can be as simple and empowering as that.
Totally. I mean, because like I have been going through a lot of clearing myself where I'm noticing that there's still some things of unworthiness, of doubt, of shame, because it's exciting that I'm creating my goals, but then it's also scary because in the human it's like, well, what if I don't make it, you know? And then all these things, and then it's like, but like I don't have to identify with this, like you were saying, you know, like I don't have, it's like this moment, this feeling that I feel, that's all it has to be. I don't have to be it, you know, like I can just like have it now and then do something with it
Mm.
later or have a different thought. And then like, cause I was listening to Abraham Hicks yesterday and it was like this really great thing that, just like how things can work out for you if you like just, you know, you don't have to explain it, right? You can just like just have a thought and then literally something can happen, right? So Esther and Jerry were like driving and they wanted to go to this restaurant, but they couldn't decide. And then something was telling them that they needed to go to this restaurant, right? Well, they had like all this money that they just had in an envelope, and something told them to give it to the waitress, right? And the waitress that day had a thought that I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, but you know, I don't know. Like she never explained it, right? And so then something told them to give her the money. And then she told them the story after. And they were like, if you would have told us the story, you wouldn't have gotten the money. But because she had just surrendered to, hey, I don't know how this is going to work out or whatever, you know, and then she was a vibrational match to what she needed in the moment. And so this is the type of stuff that I'm experiencing now. The more that I just focus on, even when it's hard, like, oh, I don't want to work out today, but oh, what happens like on my rest day tomorrow? Or, you know, just reaching for that better thought. Or if you're on the couch and you want to be a marathon runner, but you're just reaching for what does it feel like to run that race, to feel that race, then all of a sudden you're going to just start attracting ideas, things that will come to you so that then you get off the couch, you know?
Right. It reminds me of Josh's favorite quote by Henry Ford: "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right."
Exactly. Because it's so true. Because our thoughts are really a thought. The one thought that you have is already manifesting into something, whether you see it now or you see it later or, you know, whatever. And so that's why it, like, for me, like, I know that I'm going to create what it is that I want, but I don't have to be attached to it. And I don't have to think that this is it, you know, because that's what happens with people's goals. You know, they ate something and they're like, this is it. Like, my goals are done. Like, I started January 1 and by January 2nd, it's done. And they just throw it all away. But like, if we were to know that, like, oh, I did that and accept that I did that, and you still have a new moment to start over, you know, it doesn't have to be the end. Like we just attach that identity of, well, I'm a failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I see that a lot with people who work with me and who work with Josh, and I imagine with you as well, though we haven't talked about it, is that people assume that we have fixed identities as successes. And that's as dangerous as having a fixed identity as a failure, because it's just as brittle. Right? So if I'm like, oh, I've got this handled, and then I go and I eat some chocolate, I'm like, everything's wrong. Right? Like there was this professor, I can't remember his name, but he was studying in the 70s. He was studying, and this is going to sound really weird, tangent, but I don't think it is. He was studying the U.S. soldiers in the Korean War who defected to the communist side. And it wasn't the soldiers who were, you know, most badly beaten by the Koreans. It wasn't the North Koreans. It wasn't the, ones who'd been there the longest. The ones who defected were they were all from this one unit where they were being indoctrinated by the U.S. Army that the Koreans were subhuman monsters. And when they were captured and they discovered that the Koreans were not subhuman monsters, they were like, my entire worldview has just fallen apart. And so it's like, if we think of ourselves as anything other than in flux and in flow in this moment, in the next now, and the next now, and the next now, once we have an identity, if it's a negative identity, first of all, it's very easy to reinforce. And we then have confirmation bias, so that anytime we do something that's against that identity, we negate it. So someone compliments you, oh, you went for a nice walk. It says, oh, but yeah, it was too short. It was blah, blah, blah. Whereas if we have this positive identity and we're really attached to it, then any little thing can undermine it.
Yeah, and it's a muscle. Like the more that you practice it, the more that you can continuously remind yourself that, you're enough. It's going to be good. Like the decision that you're making right now is perfect. We get to have more of the experiences that we want. But, over and over, like even when I coach people, and when they say, well, I did it again. And it's like, well, you did it again because that's what you were focusing on. If you decided that you didn't want to focus on that, you wanted to focus on the big change, then you would start changing. It's just a matter of where is your focal point, and a lot of times because we as a society, like we just the media, right? It's like constantly like somebody died today or this person did this, and it's like just a habit that we are focused on that. But, when we start to shift that, it changes.
Yeah, at the locker room in my gym, they've got a TV playing one of the ESPN channels that's always talking about football. And they're never actually playing football. They're just talking about football. And and it strikes me how fixed the arguments are around this quarterback was he bad last week? Like was he washed up? Was whose fault was it that this team lost? Right? And it creates this false narrative of fixedness. When everybody screws up, everybody does good, and what we're looking for is more W's than L's.
Yeah, but what if we as a society started maybe they're in the locker room talking about what a wonderful job people did and they didn't talk about those things. How would that, shift everyone? But it's like we feed. It's like a cockroach or something. Like we feed off of this gossip, this because if you're positive, right, there's nothing really to gossip. It's like, oh yeah, I went for a run today, great, but it's like if you're like, well, it wasn't that short, and now you have this whole story about how it wasn't good enough, and now you get to talk more about that negative space, and then you create more of that in there. So when you have a negative thought, it tends to last longer because there's so much more to say about it,
Right. And I think one of the habits that we try to teach people is always try to replace a negative with a positive in terms of action. So instead of not eating the cake, get up and get a glass of water. Right. And so be with don't run away from the negative, the yucky feelings. But, once you've experienced them, then look for pathways to some action that'll shake things up.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Cool. Well, that's how we end 2019. So it's the
Yeah.
last year and the last of the decade. So now is the time that we can all make a change, for the better for ourselves, for everyone. By us helping ourselves, we are helping our neighbor. We are helping that next person that is having trouble. So, the message today is to accept where you are, be okay with it, and know that the next moment can be even better.
Right. And we got Cheryl saying hi, y'all. Hi, Cheryl. And says,
Hi!
giving myself permission to not be perfect all the time has made my attitude toward change so much more positive.
I love it.
Right on.
That's
Right.
perfect.
All right. Great way to end the year. Thanks, Cheryl. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you in 2020.
See you in 2020.